she's so fine. Hell of a hell of a blows my mind. Hell of a hell of a.
What's good, guys? This story came out this afternoon by the Chicago Tribune. Father calls for answers after official probe into Chicago police officer who shot his son. That is a picture of Maurice Granton Sr. on the right hugging Beverly Varnado during a press conference about his son and her grandson, who was shot and killed by police in Bronzeville on June 11, 2018 in Chicago. There are several more pictures, and I will show those at the end of this. The father of a 24-year-old man shot and killed by a Chicago police officer nearly 3 years ago demanded answers from city officials today on why he hasn't received word on whether the cop involved will face discipline. Quote, "Why won't you release the information about my son?" End quote, Maurice Granton said of city officials in a news briefing held today outside City Hall. His son, Maurice Granton Jr., was shot and killed by Officer Sheldon Thrasher on June 6, 2018, while scaling a fence in the Southside's Bronzeville neighborhood. The 24-year-old's family has since filed a Cook County lawsuit in the case. That is a picture of Maurice Granton Jr. Good-looking young man. Even though the city's Civilian Office of Police Accountability, or COPA, completed its investigation in the case late last year, city officials have not disclosed how or if they will take action against Thrasher. Granton Sr. noted that when the police need help solving crimes, they ask the community to help out, to tell if you saw something, to solve the crimes in the city. But when the city has information on their own doing something, they have a problem letting it loose. Granton said he was just pleading for justice for his son. For the community, for his family, I want accountability from the city, he said. Integrity from the city. That's a picture of balloons, candles, and signs that were placed for a vigil for Maurice Granton Jr. The city's law department is representing Thrasher and the city, which were named as defendants in the ongoing lawsuit. That same law department, though, with different attorneys, would also be tasked with filing disciplinary charges in the case if necessary. In mid-December, COPA announced it had completed its investigation into the shooting. While it would not disclose its findings, the agency said it forwarded them to the police department at the end of the prior month as a matter of routine. The police department had up to 90 days from then to respond, a period that has now passed. The department can respond by either agreeing or disagreeing with COPA's findings and recommendations. If the police department agreed with COPA's findings, the law department is supposed to prepare disciplinary charges for the Chicago Police Board. But if the police department disagreed, the process calls for a review by one police board member to decide whether city attorneys should file disciplinary charges anyway. A law department spokesperson today had no immediate comment. Police accountability advocates have long lamented that Chicago's police disciplinary process is slow-moving, which they say can have a negative impact both on victims of misconduct and their families who are waiting for answers, as well as on officers who might be unfairly accused. In the Granton case on June 6, 2018, Wentworth District tactical officers were conducting a narcotics investigation when they were directed to the 300 block of East 47th Street in the Southside's Bronzeville neighborhood, Chicago police have said. Surveillance footage gathered by investigators showed the 24-year-old Granton Jr. and others milling around under the CTA Green Line before a police car pulled up and the men scattered. The body camera from one officer captured him saying, quote, "Come here, man," end quote, and then chasing Granton, who jumped a wooden fence, leaving the view of that officer's body camera. But his camera captured the sound of a single gunshot, then a pause, followed by 3 more shots in quick succession. The body camera footage showing Granton lying wounded did not include audio at the time of the shooting. course it didn't. That video showed Granton running across a vacant lot and darting onto a wrought iron fence with one leg raised. As both hands reach for the top of the fence, an officer can be seen raising his gun. The footage then showed Granton immediately fall from the fence, stumble to his left a few feet, and then drop to the ground, writhing in pain. Granton was shot in the back, according to Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. The civil lawsuit filed after the shooting alleged that Thrasher fired at least 3 times, striking the 24-year-old at least once in the back and severing his spinal cord. The lawsuit also alleged that as a crowd emerged at the scene, Thrasher, who was black, could be heard, quote, mocking, end quote, Granton. At the time of the shooting, the police department released a statement saying Granton had, quote, produced a weapon, end quote, before an, quote, armed encounter, end quote, with police took place. It also released limited video footage it said showed Granton holding a gun shortly before the shooting. The department also tweeted out a photo of a 9mm handgun it said was recovered from the shooting scene. When the lawsuit was filed in July of 2018, one of the Granton family's lawyers criticized the police department for its limited release of information as a way to control the shooting narrative. If you're going to release any evidence, then release it all or don't release any, attorney Antonio Romanucci told reporters at the time. They can control the narrative to shape public opinion, to make this look like this is about something that it's not, when it's really about transparency and getting to the truth and finding out what happened. Now, these are the pictures that they included with this article. Tasia Shaw, who has 2 daughters with Maurice Granton Jr., is emotional as she arrives at COPA's offices before viewing the police video showing the shooting death of her boyfriend, Maurice Granton Jr., and that was on July 28th of 2018. I can make this a little bit bigger. I mean, you can see she's visibly upset. That is Maurice Granton Sr. in the center, preparing to speak with media after viewing the police video showing the shooting death of his son outside COPA offices in July of 2018. That is his father preparing to speak to the media back in 2018. That is Tasia Shaw speaking of how good of a father Maurice Granton Jr. was to their young daughters. That's Maurice Granton Jr.'s grandmother, visibly upset. This says Emily Mallory left Hugs Formula Watley Center before a vigil for their friend Maurice Granton Jr. in the 4700 block of South Prairie Avenue on June the 7th, 2018 in Chicago. Teresa Richardson cries while walking across 47th Street before a vigil for her younger brother Maurice Granton Jr. in the 4700 block of South Prairie. This shows Precious Richardson on the left lighting candles during the vigil for Maurice Granton Jr., who was her uncle, on South Prairie Avenue. That is another picture of Precious Richardson hugging someone at the vigil for her uncle, Maurice Granton Jr. This is a picture of Maurice Granton Jr.'s sister, Joanna Varnado, 31, visiting the site where he was shot by police just the day before. See, and I show these pictures and these videos because I want people to personalize this. This is not just some news story. These are people's lives. This is another picture of Joanna Varnado, 31, talking about the shooting of her brother the day before. I mean, these pictures have got to tug at your heart. That's another picture of his sister and also his girlfriend, who he has children with, visiting the site where the police shot him. This picture is captioned, "Chicago officers remain at the scene of a police-involved shooting near 47th Street and Prairie Avenue in the Bronzeville neighborhood on June the 6th, 2018. This one's the same. The police on the scene. Now, this is a picture of Maury Scranton Jr. with one of his two daughters. You could tell she loved her daddy. Cute little baby. I'm going to go ahead and play the body cam footage from that day. It has a brief little narrative at the beginning. I'm going to try to read the first part because it flashes on the screen pretty fast, but it is body cam footage from that day. On July 25th, 2018, the COPA released video of the police-involved shooting of Maury Scranton, 24, who was killed June 6, 2018 in the Bronzeville neighborhood. Body cam footage is from another officer at the scene.
Come here, man.
I just didn't see it there. Now, I've only watched it a couple of times now, but I'll have to watch that one again because I'm not seeing what the police are saying. I'm going to end the video out with a picture of Maury Scranton Jr., who did not deserve to die on June the 6th, 2018. And I'm going to stay on top of this case because this father is adamant and he is persistent. And he wants justice for his son, and I don't blame him one bit. You guys have a great day. Thanks for watching.